Preparing for our exciting holiday coming up, Festival of Lights. For today, we only have a limited time to prepare. So I would like to start chapter 13. We're going to skip chapter 12 for now, and we're going to go into this difficult issue of where and when to light the Hannukah candles, because we're going to see that there's many different opinions, and we'll try to make some sense of it, some heads and tails. The bottom line I'm going to tell you right off the bat, not because I want you to leave and say, oh, okay, I know the bottom line. But it's not shocking to you. There are different opinions, and pretty much they're all kosher. Any one you do is going to be kosher. But there are places where you light which are not kosher. So that's we still have what to learn. But among the different approaches, we're going to see what they are. There are a number of kosher options. It's not like you have to get the right one or you haven't done your mitzvah. Okay, one of those few options which we're going to discuss, they're all equally valid. We can argue about which is the ideal, and you can have a personal preference as well. So that's my bottom line that I wanted to show you. But we're going to learn now, and then you'll see what I'm talking about. Okay? Okay, so let's learn. Page 265 in Pnimei Halacha. It's called Zmanim, the volume. And I have another one here if anybody needs. Everybody has one? Everybody has enough? There's enough? Okay, great. When and where to light the Hannukah candles. I'm going to let you read a little bit first.
Hannukah.
Yes. We're going to read from page 265 for the first till 273, and then we'll discuss it. Okay, it's about 8 pages. Where, the two topics: where and then when. And then there's more about when, but we'll we'll get to there afterwards.
Do we still have Megillah Ta'anit, or is that lost?
No, we haven't. We do. Okay, so a few moments to learn silently. And you can make notes and write down your questions if you like. Page 265, chapter 13. Chapter 13, up until 273.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. Asher, you might want to grab one of these from the library. I have one more for Hirsch. Zamanim, yeah. Thanks. And Malta, you can give this to Hirsch when he turns around. Thank you. Everybody has, just you. Thank you. Okay, a few more minutes to finish up and we'll discuss. Okay, so I'll just make a few comments and then I'll take your questions and be happy to hear what your thoughts are. In terms of where to light. Okay, you guys with me?
Mm-hmm.
Where to light. there are three options. One is the most common that you know of, most people grow up with and you see, is the windowsill. Go to the window from your house, inside your house, wherever the common room is, facing outside, and you light it in the windowsill. Second option, you may have heard it for the first time here, and that is to light in the doorway. This is on your right, Hannukah candles on the left, near the left doorpost. That's when you're entering the house. This is on the right, and Ner Hannukah on the left, and you're surrounded by the mitzvot. I think I mentioned the other day in another class, there's even an ancient midrash which talks about that part of the persecution of the Jewish people by the Syrian Greeks was that they were not allowed to have doors on their homes. That is usually interpreted to mean that it was this cultural war. This fight was about the concept of privacy, concept of the family being central pillar of Judaism, and how you can't really have intimacy between husband and wife, within a family. You can't really have intimacy without a door, and so this was their attempt to break down Jewish culture. As I said, can't put doors on your homes, and so when we are commemorating that we overcame the persecution, we're going to mark the miracle. Of course, we mark it through the candles because of the oil that lasted for 8 days, as we mentioned in a different class. But you all know about this idea of the oil lasting for 8 days. Where do we commemorate it? We don't go to the temple. Most people in the world don't have access to the temple, including us. Right now, we don't have a temple. So we commemorate it in our homes. But where in the homes? By the door. Door is another hint to the commemoration of this that what we're celebrating is fighting against the persecution and the fight against Torah values. And one of our primary Torah values is the holiness of marriage, the holiness of the home, the importance of having homes. So that's the second option.
This is the Seleucid Greek?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. The third option might be surprising to you, but this was the custom in many communities for hundreds of years. On the table, inside your home, on the kitchen table, on the central place in the home, not in the window, and not in the doorway. Where did this come from? This came from, it's quoted here in footnote number 1, that the Tosfot mentions that at one point, the Gemara even mentions that sometimes it was forbidden to light a candle, not during Hasmonean times, afterwards. In some communities, there was even an avodah zara associated with lighting candles. You were only allowed to light candles in, the church, or for example, or in the temple of the pagan god, whatever
Russia,
it is.
France.
I think in different
Germany.
places it had different expressions. I don't know specifically which community this was, but the Talmud relates that there was Habarim, some kind of a nation, where they had this law that if you lit a candle outside of their pagan temple, you could be put to death. So that's pretty dangerous. And so the custom became to be, and then it continued, got even strengthened in Christian countries during the times of the Crusades, where they were really, it was dangerous. We know it till today. Anti-Semitism is rampant in many communities around the world, and the people hide their being Jewish. So you don't want to put it on the doorway, and you don't want to put it by the window to show, but you still want to light Hannukah candles. Who are you going to publicize the miracle to? If you're lighting it on your kitchen table?
Your family.
To you or your family, that's right, it's for ourselves. It's not the original halacha of lighting outside to publicize the miracle, but that was in a place with no danger. When there's a place of danger, you do it for your own family inside your home. No window, and maybe not even the door, because maybe that was, I don't know why you wouldn't be able to do it on the door, on the inside of the door. But this became the custom, and now that we live in Israel, Baruch Hashem, at least all of us here now, people listening may be in a place where they feel the danger, but in most of the Western world, there's no danger to light a Hannukah in your windowsill. So ideally, we should go back. There's a debate, but most rabbis, I believe, feel that it's ideal to light once again, like the original institution, that's outside your door. Outside your door. What about wind? So apparently in the day, they didn't have as much wind because maybe the houses were closer together or they managed. But nowadays, if you wanted light outside, you're going to have to get some kind of a aquarium, they call it. Some kind of a glass box so that you can light the candles by the side. That's what I just bought. Last week I bought a box. Cost me 100 shekels. But I needed a new one because I got a new menorah last year as a gift. So I got a new, and the one I had didn't fit the old aquarium that I had. So I got a new one. It fits. It looks really nice. I'll send you a picture, hopefully on Hannukah, and you'll see, or maybe you'll come by. We'll see if that works out in terms of the scheduling. So I like to light outside, going back to the original law of the Gemara is to publicize the miracle outside, and I light at my door, which is another enhancement of the miracle. Those are the three basic options. They're all kosher. The Tosfot already says, and it's discussed. As I said, some of the Sephardim say, well, we just keep doing what we're doing. And if it was kosher last year on my kitchen table, so there's going to be kosher this year on my kitchen table, even though it's not the original way the mitzvah was done. Once the allowance became popular, that you can light indoors for your family, so you can do that. And if you choose, if for any reason that's better for you, for your education of your kids or whatever, you want to have it on your table, you can fulfill the mitzvah that way. All three options are kosher. I'll take your questions now. Just 1 second. There's one other option. I just want to add one other option, and then I'll take your questions. There's one other option, and that is the courtyard. If you live in a home that has a yard around it, the Talmud mentions that this might be considered the entrance to your home. And this was primarily the best svara, it's mentioned in footnote number 2, the best reasoning, the Chazon Ish says, in those days the homes were very small. A lot of the household activities were done in the yard, including cooking. You can see this until today in some places in the world where the homes are very small, that it's only for sleeping. And really, so the laundry is done outside, and the cooking's done outside, and all the sitting around, and the playing, and everything, all that, it's really, the courtyard is part of the house. And that's why the Talmud said that the doorway to the courtyard, if there's a gate, so that's really going to be publicizing the miracle more so. And in most cases nowadays, we don't use our yards in the same way.
What about the rain when they cook?
They would wait until the rain stopped in order to cook. Yeah, or
Rain
they'd
all
cover it
day.
somehow. They'd have to cover it. But this was the practice. In any case, I think that's rare. Some poskim say if you try to do that today, you won't fulfill your obligation because the courtyard is not the same type of courtyard that they used to have. But some poskim say no, it says courtyard, so you can do it at the
Some
courtyard.
of us can say that you fulfill it just because you just lit it. Because for a homeless person, they don't have a courtyard, so therefore, if they were to light it and they had it right at the courtyard, then that means they won't fulfill the mitzvah at all.
Right.
So
There
therefore,
is
they just
another
go
level.
wherever
The
they are.
assumption here is that you have to have a home, and if someone doesn't have a home, we'll have to talk about that separately. Moshe, thank you for waiting.
So I actually have a question about the Hannukah itself, the
Okay.
candelabra.
Yeah.
Does it have to be a singular piece that is all attached to each other? Or can it be 8 or 9, including the shamash? Could it be 9 like similar, but one of them being taller that are all right next to each other? Is that acceptable?
It's a good question. Many years I went with this question and I searched and I really couldn't find any source that says you have to have a candelabra with 8 lights. The point is to light the number of candles, and nowadays we say candles. In those days, oil, it means a number of receptacles where you keep your oil. They can be different, they can be the same. The point is the light, the flame.
It's like
And
hypothetically use like
Not-
bottles with candles sticking in them all next to each other.
Absolutely. Not hypothetically. For many years, I had such a menorah. That's probably why I was going with the question because I'd like to have they have these lanterns which you can buy for lighting a candle in the yard. They have a little door to them, and you close the little door, and each one, it looks like it's a standalone. So I bought 8 of them, and I put them on my, it was actually the edge of my courtyard, despite what I said that it might be problematic to use the courtyard, because where I live, nobody would see my window, and nobody would see my door, but outside the courtyard, I put it there so that people would be able to see it. And I liked the idea, so I had 8 standalone lanterns. There's no mitzvah necessarily to have I'm sorry for all those Judaic, artists and people who like to sell these kind of things. You don't have to buy a menorah, you just have to light candles. First day 1 candle, second day 2 candles, etc. But the actual structure is not mandated anywhere that I saw. That's a good question. Okay. Yeah, the beer bottles is cool.
I'm serious.
I would suggest using Corona beer bottles. Okay. Yes,
But
David.
When you said that, it says here that the menorah shall be placed.
Yes.
The menorah.
Who's they? Who are you quoting? You quoting Rabbi Melamed? Okay, that's most people use a Hannukah, but we actually the better term is Hannukah than menorah. Why?
Because that's referred specifically to.
To what? To what?
To a device being used.
Menorah is 7. That's right. The menorah is in the temple at 7, and what we use is a Hannukah. There's 8 branches.
So quick definitions on a couple of things. Enclosed courtyard, what's our definition of that?
So we
Does it have
just
to have a gate? Does it have to, if it's 3 walls or 3.5 walls but no gate, is it enclosed?
so we just discussed it. And,
Yeah, I know, but what's the actual?
the bottom line is that it's according to some poskim, if the edge of the courtyard, the doorway to the courtyard is fine, regardless of the number of walls and the nature of those walls. But other poskim say that better stay away from the courtyard law because we don't use our courtyards in the same way, and go to one of the 3 major options, which I gave you at the beginning, which is either the windowsill, the doorway, or the table inside your house.
So if we were to adopt the tradition of the courtyard being an extension of the home in that manner, then we could start to line the Hannukah in front of the...
Sure, you could, yeah, you could, yes.
And so if you were to do that, could you just put one, say, like, because where I'm from, people live on Ball acreage, and no one would see the window from the yard, it's like a plantation or something.
Yeah.
It's like, would it be, could you just put one?
This is Alabama, right?
Yes, sir. Like,
So nobody would see it on the street, nobody would see it in the house.
right, but
It's
if it
only
were
a-
excuse me, like
Yeah.
a fence or a courtyard or something, then they could see it, it would publicize it.
Right. So according to many poskim, that's allowed, and that would even be advisable. That's what I told you I did when I was living also, when my house was set out very far away from the street or from where people were walking around. So that would be kosher, and maybe even advisable. Again, you need some kind of aquarium, that type of thing, depending on the weather. But Russell, a follow-up question?
Yes, sir, and so in doing that, could you have like one in your home for your family as well, like a?
Excellent, very good. So in most homes, first of all, there's no problem in lighting 2 Chanukiot. Don't say the bracha twice. Say the bracha at one of the places and have in mind that it will cover the second place you light the Hannukah. As long as they're standalone and they're separate, it might even be a good idea. The Talmud has a discussion and says that in some communities, if you have a house that has 2 entrances, he talked about that, I think, no? Maybe in the footnote. The Talmud has a discussion, one in the north and one in the south, and if you light your Hannukah in the north, people in the south are going to think you're not keeping the mitzvah. You're not being a good Jew. And so light 2 Hannukah is an option which is mentioned. And additionally, I would say that this is what I do in my home. We follow the custom where every individual lights his own Hannukah, including my wife. And so we can spread it out. I light outside. I like to light outside.
Light it off inside of the house.
And my wife lights inside. She lights in the windowsill, which actually, it shines in another place. And so you cover all the bases, sort of, together. When you put the entire household together, that's definitely an option. They're spreading it out. Not everybody has to do the same thing. As I said, they're all pretty much kosher. I think other questions. You're moving, and then David.
One question, one comment, if it's okay.
Yeah.
The question is an electric menorah kosher?
It's a good question. That's a chapter that we didn't study yet. Maybe we'll cover it another day. Most poskim say no. Most poskim say no. The concept is defined in halacha as having oil with a wick. And you don't really have a receptacle with oil when you're connecting to the power grid. If you had a battery-operated light, that might be better because you actually do have a receptacle with the equivalent of the energy of oil. But you don't really have a wick which lights on fire. It depends what type of light bulbs you use. So basically, the short answer is no. Don't use electric lights for Hanukkah candles. For Shabbos candles, it's something else that perhaps has a different law. But for Hanukkah candles, I would stay away from electrical lights. Most poskim say they're not kosher. And what's the second question? One second, one at a time. Yeah.
So, quick follow-up question on that issue before the comment. So back home, the Chabad would, there was someone from Chabad would take their vehicle, put a huge massive menorah.
They do it here too.
It's amazing. It's a
They do it
beautiful
here.
thing.
It's a beautiful thing.
And drive around.
I wouldn't make a bracha before lighting that.
Okay, so that's not
That's not a
kosher.
that's right. It's not a kosher menorah.
They're
They're publicizing the miracle. They're doing beautiful things. They're making people proud of their Judaism, but it's not a fulfillment of the mitzvah of the Rabbanan of lighting Hanukkah.
Okay.
Okay, now comment.
So the comment.
Again, I get there. 1 second. Yeah, go ahead.
So it's interesting what you're talking about with the attack on the family by the Greeks. That makes total sense with the homes,
Doorway,
the
yeah.
doors.
Mhm.
So if I understand the mitzvah of lighting the Hanukkah menorah, it's a mitzvah upon the man and his household, upon the family. And when you compare it to Purim, it's each individual's mitzvah to listen to the Megillah at an
Right.
individual level. So this is I never realized it until you mentioned the attack of the family. That's the connection to.
Right. The fact that you have to light the Hannukah in your home. So it's really only if you have a home can you fulfill the mitzvah, like Ezra was intimating. But it's a good comment. Okay, David, and then I'll take the other questions.
Well, I think actually, I was reading ahead after I said, but it doesn't matter how tall it is as long as the base, the height that we give is, obviously, I guess it doesn't apply to the flames, just the base of the menorah.
The opposite. It's the flames that matter. It's the flames that matter. And as it says at the beginning of the section that we studied, the ideal height is between 3 and 10 tefachim. Usually the simplest thing is just to take a chair, about the height of what that we're sitting on. That's about the right height for the flames. So if you have the base, of a very tall menorah, put it on the floor. And the flames is really the real candle. Like I was saying to Moshe in the answer, I don't really see any halachic significance of what you're lighting on in terms of have a Chanukiah or a lantern or a candle and so forth. So what we're measuring and we're looking for is the height of the flames.
So if I had a Hannukah that I set on the ground, but the flames were more than 3
tefachim, that would be
high,
kosher. That would be kosher. Yes, that's my opinion. Yes.
So here at the Machon, there's 4 of us in a room.
Yeah.
It's not, and the window is only about that big.
Yeah.
So it's not very practical for all of us to have them in the window.
It could be
So-
done, but it depends on the
It's
room.
not-
Yeah.
As I said, it's not necessarily a practical thing.
Right. So what's the other option?
My question is, should we just have maybe just one in the window and the rest of them just on the desk? Should we have them sideways so that we can have all 4 of them? Or is it just, should we just not really worry about it because it's just so impractical?
I say what you should do, and part of the idea of doing mitzvot, especially in a communal session, is you should discuss it and talk about it and decide together.
We're all here.
Not now, not now, but by all means, you might say one person will light on the window, one will light on this table, one will light at the doorway. They're all kosher, and maybe you'll have a personal preference. I like saying it's a lot of personal preference. At some point, I lit at the edge of my courtyard. At one point, I lit at the door to my house on the outside. Another year, I lit on the door to my house on the inside. Another year, I lit on the kitchen table. Another year, I lit on my bedroom window because that was the one where people would see it most. So They're all kosher, and really you can choose which one you feel best expresses how you want to do the mitzvah this time. Someone on this side wanted to ask a question and was waiting. Okay, Russell, go ahead. I'll get you to.
Just a couple of quick questions. One of them was modern accelerants, fuels like butane, propane. If you have a
If you have a receptacle that has fuel in it, should be kosher.
Okay.
That's the halachic principle we're looking for. We're looking for a wick and a fuel source. So it doesn't matter if it's natural gas. Asher.
Yeah, I have two questions. First is I want to add with the electronic. Isn't that the mitzvah is to light the rest of the candle with the middle candle, the middle light? So
Yeah.
electronics is out of, out of the picture on that. Because
Okay.
you have to use the middle one. You
Very
have to light the
interesting.
middle one first
Very
and then light the rest
interesting.
of it.
Yeah.
So, and the second question that I have is, like it's talk about the mezuzah on the left and on the right you have to light the candles. So I have
The opposite.
Yeah, I have
The opposite.
middle one.
Mezuzah's on the right. If-
Yeah, so I have the oil with the lantern. So I just recall that last year I didn't put it on the right because the door is here and it goes out and there's a kind of a small area that steps goes down. So what happens is if I put it on the right, which is opposite to the mezuzah,
Yeah.
it becomes an obstacle for the stairs.
Mm.
So I put it on the right, like on the same side to the mezuzah.
Uh-huh.
Would that be a problem?
Okay, good. So I think you're wrong on both questions. Let's go with the first one first and then the second one afterwards. The first one is your assumption that you have to use a shamash. That's, you called it the middle candle, could be on the side, could be in the middle, it doesn't matter, but that's really not significant halachically,
Okay.
using the shamash at all. You can use a match. The fact that we put an additional candle right next to the candles, that's significant. But it doesn't have to be the same one that you use to light all the others.
Right.
The lighting is not what's critical here. You can light it with a match, like I said. That's your shamash. But the reason, the more important part of having a shamash is that afterwards, for example, if someone's lighting in their home and it's on their table and then they're having their meal, so then they'll be deriving benefit from the lights. Imagine the 8th night of Hannukah, there's quite a lot of illumination from the Hannukah, and you're not supposed to use the lights of the Hannukah. And therefore, the sages said, always put on an additional candle there. In the middle, on the side, doesn't matter. But the point is that if you are going to be enjoying somewhat the lights of the Hannukah, just even if you don't intend to, we can say you're enjoying the light of the shamash and not enjoying the lights of the actual Hannukah. So that's the point. The point is lighting it. Second thing you said about where to put your Hannukah, it's kosher at the door anywhere close to the door. It could be on the right-hand side too, could be on the left-hand side, whatever's convenient. But if it's going to be causing, a hazard, people are going to be knocking it over,
Right.
stay away from that for sure. Don't do that. You could put it on. It could be on the same side as the mezuzah. It's not the end of the world. It's still kosher, but as long as it's close to the doorway, that's kosher. Okay, another question. Yeah. Okay, David, and
This
then
actually-
Hirsch was
this
waiting.
ties to the last question. Since we have the shamash to not be using the illumination, should we put slightly more oil in the shamash to ensure that it burns longer?
Some people do that. It doesn't have to burn longer. It just has to burn as long as the longest candle that burns.
Should be
You
the
want it to always burn.
longest
As
burning.
long as the longest candle, so you don't have any situation where the candles are still there and there's no shamash. That's the idea. Yes, sir.
I kind of have two questions. First one, in regards to lighting Hannukah on Shabbat, do the same rules apply right before the sun sets? You light and then
So that's the next section. Bezrat Hashem, we'll discuss tomorrow. We'll continue. The very next section it talks about Friday evening and Saturday night. That's page 274. We stopped at 273. So the second question.
My second question is regarding the more traditional way of lighting the Hannukah with like eight little glass bowls of oil. How
Okay.
do you, if the shemesh is in the candle, how does one light the Hannukah with the more traditional model?
You need a wax candle or a match or something, because you're right. It's hard
Use a
to
wax candle.
take an oil.
How
Make-
do they
make
do
it-
it historically?
They had a lighter, some kind of a candle to light, some kind of a match or something.
There's a lighter, the long one.
Long candles, yeah.
A barbecue lighter.
Okay, okay, we'll stop here and continue tomorrow. Laws of Hanukkah.